Hi, my name is Mystic. I'm in 10th grade at Pioneer, and I'm going to talk about cell phones in schools. It's a topic of conversation being discussed quite a bit across the country. You may already know that the state of Massachusetts is considering legislation for cell phone free schools. It was passed 38 to 2 in the Senate and is now in the House of Representatives as of this recording. My school went cell phone free last school year, and I'm a fan of the policy. One possible reason we've heard for the decline in engagement in school we've seen is distractions from cell phones. We added a question to our survey this year asking how often students are distracted by phones in class, and this pie chart shows those results, with nearly 2/3 of students reporting some level of phone distractions in class, and over 1/3 reporting a few distractions or more per week. And we do see a strong correlation between how often students are distracted by phones in class and how engaged they feel in school. Students who are never distracted by phones in class report much higher levels of engagement than students who are constantly distracted by phones in school. We also took a look at the difference between schools that had effectively adopted phone-free policies and schools that hadn't. We define phone-free schools here as the schools that implemented policies banning cell phone use throughout the school day, and seem to be successfully enforcing those policies by the vast majority of their students, reporting never being distracted by phones during class. We can see that phone-free schools saw a big improvement in engagement after they implemented these policies, whereas engagement continued to decline in other schools. Some of the takeaways we get here are that schools that went phone-free in our region all day and whose students reported relatively low phone distractions in class had a big improvement in engagement, even though they were very similar to other local schools before the policies were enacted. This does not prove that phone-free policies lead to an improvement in student engagement, but it is evidence that these policies are promising. And how well the policies implemented matters. When schools had phone-free policies that were not enforced, they didn't see the same benefits as when they were enforced. I'm a big fan of the phone-free policy in my school because phones in school created a barrier for connection between peers.
My name is Katie. I go to Mahar Regional School, and I'm going to be talking about social media use and youth mental health. These next slides were put together by Dr. Elizabeth Bertone Johnson, who's the chair of the Epidemiology Department at UMass School of Public Health. One clear thing we can see from our data is that local young people are spending a lot of time on social media. This is similar to national trends as well. More than 40% of students in our region report spending at least 3 hours per day or more on social media. We asked about which specific platforms students are using most often, and we see that YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram are the most common. Each of those are reportedly used often by more than half of local youth. We also looked at differences in the average amount of time reported on social media by which platforms they use most. Those that use YouTube most often tend to spend 3 hours a day on social media. Those that use TikTok most often tend to spend 3.5 hours a day on social media. For Snapchat, that's 3.6 hours, the same for Instagram. So some of these platforms may draw in users more than others. And when we look at time on social media with risk of depression, we see a pretty clear relationship where risk of depressive symptoms increase with more time on social media. And similarly, we see that the more time young people spend on social media, the higher the depressive symptom score is on average. So the more severe the symptoms of depression are. Social media doesn't seem to affect every group equally. Girls are much more likely to see a stronger relationship between social media and depressive symptoms than boys do. Also for girls, we see that depressive symptoms increase with the number of social media platforms that are used often. The same patterns also hold true for anxiety. So the more time young people spend on social media, the higher their likelihood is of reporting symptoms of anxiety. The same thing is also true for thinking about suicide. The more time young people spend daily on social media, the higher their likelihood of thinking seriously about suicide tends to be. And the risk is more than doubled for students who use social media 5 or more hours per day compared to non-users. Our local data also shows that time on social media is correlated with academic failure or bad grades, worrying about physical appearance, worrying about peer issues, using social media to avoid difficult feelings and situations, and getting enough sleep at night. And even after accounting for differences based on demographics, we see that every additional hour of social media use is associated with a 14% higher risk of depression, an 11% higher risk of anxiety, an 11% higher risk of suicidal thoughts, and an 18% higher risk of suicidal planning. The two big takeaways from this section are that the majority of students spend several hours each day on social media, and more time on social media is associated with a higher risk of severe mental health issues for young people.